Now let's move on to one of the, well, in terms of names, absolutely massive cunt, Valero.
Yeah,
I mean, let's have a look at Vietti's Valero. What's that? $900 a bottle retail now?
Is it that much?
It is.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I've sold a bit.
Yeah, right.
It's up there.
And the other one we see is Mauro Mascarello,
Yep.
Giuseppe Mascarello. They're quite a few $100s, aren't they?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a great wine. I really like that. That's close enough to my...
I've only had it once, and unfortunately it was a late open at the end of the night, and my recollection of it is not strong. I remember enjoying it, and that's...
Yeah, as a person brought up into wine, not through the thunderous wines, but through Burgundy, the finesse, Rayas and Gigondas, the great grenaches of flesh and lightness on their feet. Valero really grabs me because of that. It's really the same things that would make a Burgundy person go funny at the knees.
Well, tell us about Valero. Where is Valero?
So Valero is so we've moved into Castiglione Folletto as a sub bracket. These next three are, I guess, the three great names of the Castiglione Folletto. Stylistically, Castiglione Folletto is really interesting. You can pick it by two things. Again, if you want some markers for mass tasting to show off. Characteristically, the perfume, the major perfume of it is, to me, cranberry.
Yep.
You get it, and even when the wines are 30 years old, you can see ripe cranberries in the wines, and even if everything else looks like it probably comes from Barbaresco, a 30-year-old version will still give itself away with cranberry. So on the palate, Valero does this thing, or Castiglione Folletto does this thing where, if to use another good example outside of Burgundy, St. Julian's.
Yeah,
a Great de Cru, for example, you taste it once they open. It's one of the slowest wines I've ever struck to open. Or 4 hours at least. You once you've tasted it and you're talking about, you realise you haven't made almost any observations about the tannins. Yep. And that's Castiglione Folletto. It's regarded as on the tannic side of the map, if you like, because you're next to Montfort and then Serralunga. But its tannins and its acid are almost the same compound. This is scientifically not. This is my makeup.
I know what you're saying.
They're the same thing. Yep. So that they're both doing their job at the same time, carrying flavour and the beauty of that structure.
Okay, so what David's talking about here is getting a little bit next level, and it's getting a bit insane. When you start to see this, it is a hallmark of a very good wine, but there's a very important interplay between tannin, acid, alcohol, and the flavours of the wine. Tannin and acid, in particular, really bounce off each other in a sort of almost a unique relationship, as well as with alcohol and the fruit characters. When the tannin and acid balances really well, it becomes one. It becomes one really well, and you can still have refreshing zingy acid, but having only quickly tasted one of these wines, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it comes about for me in these wines because both the tannin and the acid have line and length, and and particularly with the tannin, there's a depth of tannin and a layering of the tannin that I've just seen that sort of I think is allowing that to come through, and you can see it's beautifully ripe tannin. Yeah, there's nothing edgy in there at all.
But they're just not overt, are they?
No.
Unlike, we'll see overt in a few minutes when we see these guys, and that's also they have a payoff. That stronger tannin we'll see in a minute has a payoff. Mm-hmm. But here, these are all about harmony and persistence, and as I said, I think in all three of these wines. At recent tastings, I've had people scratching their heads saying, well, when is this going to finish? When is this wine going to finish? They just keep going, and that's their thrill, that's their magic. That's why people have been prepared to pay, merchants have been prepared to pay big money for them, and they get the big marks.
That Rocky de Castiglione on the palate, insane. The Valero for me on the nose at the moment. I'm waiting. The palate of the Rocky de Castiglione off tap. I haven't put the Monprevado in my gob yet, but these are clearly quite unique on the nose, and I'm just waiting, and palate. I'm just wanting to dig into this Monprevado. So I'm going to give you my 2 seconds on Monprevado, and then you can correct everything I've got wrong. So
no, mate, it is what it is.
Yeah,
whatever it looks like to you is what it is.
Oh no, because just the history.
Oh
you've got, Monprevado has always been considered a monopole, and a monopole of legendary status. With Giuseppe Mascarello's Monprevado, a vertical of that is going to be. I have had the fortune of having a vertical of that, and I will say that half the wines were good and half the wines weren't. There was a couple of out of condition bottles, and there was a couple that just weren't great wines for him. But the ones that were special, absolutely mind-bogglingly good.
I've got to say, I'd still be like the kid in at the tuck shop when it shuts. I'd be pinching the duds too to have a look, because time after time they're so well protected by their tenants. They do pop up. Yeah. It's like De Creu's done that the number of times I've seen it dismissed by people,
and then all of a sudden,
it's by far the best wine on the table. So
12 people, there wasn't enough to go back. It was, which is the devastating thing about doing that kind of tasting. But so Monprevado, a very special vineyard. Now, this is the first time I've heard of another producer having Monprevado, and what's great about this is it's not just a new acquisition. So tell me about the history of Monprevado with Sordo.
Yeah, so these guys have had this. And I'll explain what I mean by had it. There are 2 of these wines, of the 17 parcels of Cru that they own, there's 2 of them that they don't own outright. Velero is one. They actually share that. They have ownership of it with another family. Mm-hmm. That's fine. They use most of the produce, but it is a small, I think 3,000 bottle production, Velero. Mm-hmm. 92%, if anybody's listening, 92% of it's coming to Australia, correct, in the future.
Wow.
I've scratched my name on the barrel for 17 and 18.
So it's a barrel plus topping wine.
You can take a man out of the boy. But yeah, Monprevado's the other one. They've been using it for over 4 decades.
Wow.
So over 40 years. It was owned by another family, and the last member of that family passed away in the late 80s, but left the property to the Catholic Church.
Yep.
So that's not necessarily a barrier to making a deal.
No.
And so yeah.
Catholic Church never make deals.
No.
What are you talking
so
about?
Giovanni Sordo went to them and basically rented it from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine the church got what they wanted. They put it in the hands of people that they obviously trusted. So they've got a long. I think it's it's an almost an endless arrangement. Virtually it's theirs. Monprevado was there. It's about 9 or 10% of the Cru. The rest is Giuseppe Mascarello.
Sorry, I've just got to interrupt for a second. These are really popping in the glass now. They are really coming up. They're just boom, blossoming.
Yep, they do that.
And when you differentiate between excellence and excellence, so Monprevado, the Rocky di Castiglione and the Velero, what's the thing that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think Monprevado has a gamey element to it, whether it's a mushroom or a flesh or something like that. Gevrey Chambertin sort of gaminess over time, and it's showing it fairly already in this. Maybe it's slightly Vegemite even or Marmite. So that's otherwise, the profile of all of them is fading flowers, cranberry, fading flowers, roses.
Yep.
Fading flowers is an interesting one. It's another giveaway to me of 2 things.
Do you mean like cut flowers that are just starting to tire?
Yeah, so that vase that you're about to throw out, but it looks so good, and it's actually throwing this hedonistic, slightly, deteriorating perfume. But I'm just not going to chuck them out yet because those roses are bloody gorgeous. Yep. It's a smell you get in Saint Emilion, for example, and it's it gives the Saint Emilion away in a tasting if the lack of Cabernet hasn't picked it as a right bank. The fading flowers, Cheval Blanc has got it, Parvis got it, for example.
Yep.
And those first two, well, all three of them have that sort of range of things. Cherry skin, you know the skinsy sort of character you get in Touriga Nacional. You often think of it as the Portuguese tawny port smell, but it's Touriga.
Yeah.
It's Touriga Nacional to me anyway.
It's the backbone.
Yeah, that's one of the other smells, and you get it. You get that fleshiness, that skinsy thing in Burgundy as well.
I'm going to tell you, guys, one of the reasons this works, and I think if you read any literature from a perfumer, they'll talk about this. Anyone that's good at making and putting together a perfume, you've got to balance out those perfumed characters, those generous fruit characters, with something that's a bit earthy, a bit savoury, and it's got a bit of animal in it. Otherwise, it's just too sickly sweet. And these wines are doing, well, Barolo does that beautifully in general, but these wines are doing it particularly well. So
Valero is light on its feet. It's essentially, even though today it's looking quite ripe and fleshy to me, this is generally my favourite wine just because of that lightness of style, and everything is gently layered, but it keeps going all the way through. Roque is much more powerful and muscular. It's actually got it keeps opening up to all sorts of things. Right now, I get a thing that somebody at a tasting in Sydney, this has got new oak. This has got new oak. There's a slightly coconut character. Think Ikem.
Yeah, I almost saw a sappiness to it. I didn't really see a coconutiness to it, but there is almost a sort of
sappiness runs through all of these. Yeah.
But there's a
that's my cherry skin, probably.
Yeah, maybe. That's a problem with descriptors. Sometimes it's one man's cherry skins, one man's sappiness, or another man's sappiness. But it's interesting. I really hate comparing Barolo to Burgundy directly, but if I was going to do it, I'd do it with this Valero with Chambol.
Chambol Musigny.
Yeah. And I love that wine right now.
Tingle City. Yeah.
The Roque has got some generosity to it at the moment, and it's perhaps got a bit more depth of tannin to it. It's not saying that the Valero doesn't have depth. It's just saying it's got more.
It is a much more muscular wine.
Yeah, but it's a little bit disjointed at the moment. You can clearly see, and this is being super critical, you can clearly see it's going to come together. Undoubtedly going to come together, and perhaps even by the time I taste this tonight, it will be together. So it's not a matter of
you'll be sick in your Barolo by tonight. You want some Giriffe or something.
Well, I'm drinking Burgundy this afternoon. It's Benjamin Laurie this afternoon.
That's right.
But I really enjoying the Monprevado together. It's so together at the moment. It's looking lovely, and those savoury characters that are coming through. So perfume to savouriness. This in itself is truly a masterclass, David. So thanks for bringing them along. This is just insane.
Hey, what a way to earn a living.
Well, it's not bad.
Yakking Barolo.
There's some perks to the job, isn't there?
Yeah.